and bring the meeting to order. This is the Bradford County Commissioners meeting, and Mr. Thompson is going to pray for us.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you tonight, Lord, for the privilege and opportunity of being here. Father, we just thank you tonight, Lord, for your goodness and mercy you show each and every one of us, Lord. Father, we pray tonight, Lord, for, as we go in our meeting, Father, we pray you give us the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to make decisions would be pleasing to you and to the citizens. Father, we just thank you for our county and our country, Lord. And Father, we pray you bless this meeting tonight, Lord, if it be your will. We ask these things in your precious name. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before we get started, we have a few items we're going to walk on the agenda. The first will be a presentation of the fiscal year 21-22 audit. That will be after our public comments. The next will be, we will reschedule the November 16 meeting, and that will be done by the county manager, and also Anderson Columbia invoice that we will discuss, and the county attorney will discuss PACE direction. So we'll start, we have one public comment, and that's Miss Deborah Broski. You can come on up. Come to this podium right here, Miss Broski. That's fine. You'll do fine. And just state your name and your address, and then you'll be given 3 minutes, okay? All right.
I'm Debbie Armstrong. I live at 122nd Street. I'm here because the storm had washed us out, and I'm having trouble getting in and out to go to work. There's not that many of us on that road, and then we do got children and elderly people. I have tried everything possible, asking for help, get the road graded. We're hitting bottom. I did take some pictures today. I'm not very good at this, so I did take some pictures. I'm just asking for somebody to help us, because I can't do it by myself.
Yes, ma'am.
That's about it. Yes.
Okay, and I'm sorry, the road is what?
It's 122nd Street. It's, I believe I was told it's a private road. I waited too long when they did a state emergency. I was told that they have done the road in the past. As far as I know, since I've been there, they've only done it twice. I have some people here that seen the road condition. I just can't, I mean, I'm willing to help, but I only get so much money. I just want to be able to continue working as long as I can.
Okay. All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
That's it, indeed. Okay, so we will go to the presentation of the audit.
Thank you, and good evening. Miss Amanda is going to help me out with the PowerPoint slide, but my name's Brendan McKittrick. I'm a director with James Moore and Company. You have a few items in front of you. I put a packet in front of you. There's a printout of the PowerPoint as well, in case you don't want to look up here to follow along. It summarizes the items I want to talk about tonight. There's also a letter in there with some required communication, and then the financial statements themselves, starting with the board and then the constitutional officers. You will notice the board financials are in draft form, so we were somewhat racing to get to this meeting as far as the presentation. That being said, I've been working with Dana, and I think we're to a spot where we're good with them. Not much has changed since the draft that you have in front of you. Before we get into the financial statements themselves, I did want to thank the board for the opportunity to perform the audit this year. I wanted to thank Dana as well as the clerk's office for all their help, as well as all the constitutional officers and their staff. It takes a lot of work to get to this point, so I really appreciate everything that they do. We ask a lot of questions and a lot of requests. I know it's hard, so again, really appreciate everything they do. Just to give you a little bit of background on our process, we did get engaged a little bit late in the process. We didn't get an engagement letter until about December, so that kind of pushed us off a little bit, where we started our procedures in April. That being said, we're excited about next year as far as getting the audit done in time for the June 30th deadline. So I mentioned the financial statements. Amanda, do you mind flipping to the second slide? Thank you. These are your financial statements. However, there are 5 reports that we include in here as well. The first report being the audit report. This is where we express our opinion over the financial statements themselves. And you do have what's called a qualified opinion related to OPEB or other post-employment benefits. Really, this comes down to a cost benefit for you all if you want to hire an actuary to calculate somewhat theoretical number to include in your financials. That being said, the state accepts the report as is, so you're actually saving the county some money as far as not having that actuarial calculation included in the financial statements. The second report, the single audit report, this has to do with the county having expenditures on the state and federal grant levels over $750,000. So that triggers what's called a single audit. So we have to do specific testing over controls and compliance. Really, there are no findings in that report, so it's a clean report. The third report here, the internal control and compliance report, this is where we would communicate any issues in internal control or compliance. And again, you'll see here on this slide, there were no items to communicate to you all. The fourth report, the Chapter 10-550 report, or also called the Management Letter to the Auditor General. Again, no modifications to the report. There's sometimes we include what are called other recommendations. We didn't have any of those comments in there either. And then the last report, the Independent Accounts Examination Report, just indicating that you're in compliance with all investment statutes. Amanda, do you mind going to the next slide? Thank you. So this slide is, I talked about the comments that could be in the internal control and compliance as well as the letters to the Auditor General. This is really a summary of what those comments look like for the board as well as the constitutional officers. We did have one other recommendation on the clerk side, and then on the sheriff, we had one significant deficiency, another recommendation. The significant deficiency had to do with the sheriff's office relying quite a bit on the external auditors in prior years for year-end wrap-up, adjusting entries, stuff of that nature. And really from our independence perspective, we're really supposed to be separate. We can't be a part of that internal control process. So the recommendation there was to have a third-party CPA firm come in. They did hire Laura Douglas out of Stark, so she is now working with that office. So this comment will get resolved for the next year. Amanda, do you mind going to the next slide? So now to the numbers on the board for the general fund. This is really a 3-year trend over your kind of the various categories you have in fund balance. You can kind of see the variation here. So the restricted dollars went down slightly. Those are some of those state legislative dollars that you're required to spend on certain areas. And then your assigned fund balance did go up quite a bit. That's related to your subsequent year budget. So fiscal year 23, that's kind of carried forward for that budget. And then your total fund balance has increased quite a bit. So from about 5.7 million to about 12.1 million. A lot of that having to do with that's the state revenue coming in this year increased from last year. Amanda, do you mind going? Thank you. So along the same lines, what we do is for that fund balance, we look at a percentage. So we take the assigned and unassigned fund balance and we compare it to expenditures and transfers out. You can see on this slide this year it's at about 47.8%. Last year it was at about 22.7%. And really the benchmark we use or baseline is the GFOA recommends at minimum 2 months or 16.7%. I'd say last year was probably a little bit too close to that percentage. Again, this year it has increased, so kind of the direction we would want to see it there. But again, just something to kind of keep in mind. Anna, do you mind going to the next slide? Then some other highlights, your other governmental funds, total fund balance of about, can't read that on mine, 16.8 million, with an overall increase of about 400,000, and no individual fund had a deficit. And then we also like to highlight the Florida retirement system. So I mentioned OPEB earlier. FRS is another actuarial calculation that's kind of provided by the state and pushed down to cities and counties. This number is included on your government-wide. It's a rather large number. Most people seem to see that. It is about $21.7 million. What we like to kind of highlight here is really the last two bullet points. There's no budgetary impact to the county with regards to this liability, and all the required contributions for FRS have been made. So again, nothing of concern there, but do like to highlight it because it is a rather large number included in your financial statements. And with that, I will open it up to any questions.
Just one, on the second page where you were saying that the significant difference of one for the sheriff and then one for, the clerk. And I know with having that auditor in place, it will help the sheriff. But what was the other recommendation in the clerk's area?
So that was related to some cutoff issues as far as accruals for activity at year end. So as part of our testing, we look at essentially expenses and revenues around year end and make sure they're in the right reporting period. So there was what we would call a material amount that we found and identified that had to be adjusted for. And again, the recommendation there was just be mindful of the cutoff. And, you know, talking to Dana and the clerk, I think that's not going to be an issue moving forward.
Thank you.
I have nothing. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think, good. All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. So we go to the public hearings, enactment ordinance, Ms. Randy.
Evening, Madam Chairman, evening, Board.
Good evening.
Come to you tonight with some ordinances to be read. These are the companion documents to the resolutions we passed earlier at the Planning and Zoning meeting. Again, we have a land use change and a zoning change for Murray Ford, south of town, and also a zoning change for a piece of property we changed the land use on earlier in the year. And then first we have this, or have a comp plan amendment dealing with solar farms. This will allow solar farms in the agricultural area, but as per our comp plan, where our various substations are allowed throughout the county, they will not allow solar panels in this generation, this substation type area, for lack of a better term. Just so you know, bring it down, but anyway, I'll read it by title. This is CPA 2302. This is an ordinance of Bradford County, Florida, amending the Bradford County Comprehensive Plan relating to an amendment to the text of Bradford County Comprehensive Plan pursuant for an application CP 23-02 by the Board of County Commissioners under the amendment procedures established in sections 163.3161 through 163.3215 Florida statutes as amended, for amending policy I.2.2 of the future land use element to add solar facilities as a use permitted within the agricultural land use classifications and by excluding solar facilities from the electrical power generating facility land use classification in the rural areas of Bradford County, Florida, providing severability, repealing all ordinances of conflict, and providing for an effective date. We'd like to ask for public comments, a motion, and a vote.
Okay. Do we have any public comments on CPA 2302 as read? Okay, hearing none. Do we have a motion to approve CPA 2302 as read?
I make a motion to approve CPA 2302 as read.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, then we'll vote. Mr. Riddick?
Aye.
Mr. Daughtry?
Aye.
Mr. Thompson?
Aye.
Ms. Spooner?
Aye.
And Andrews, aye. Passes 5-0.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The next item on the agenda, this is the land use ordinance, again, for Murray Ford Ford, and I'll read this by ordinance. This is S 23-0811A. This is an ordinance of Bradford County, Florida, amending the future land use plan map of the Bradford County Comprehensive Plan as amended, relating to an amendment of 50 or less acres of land pursuant to an application S 23-0811A by the property owner of said acreage under the amendment procedures established in sections 163.3161 through 163.3248 Florida statutes as amended, providing for changing the land use classification from agricultural to commercial. Of certain lands within the unincorporated area of Bradford County, Florida, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing for an effective date. I need a public comment, a motion, and a vote, please.
Okay. Is there any public comments on the ordinance as read? Okay, hearing none. Do we have a motion to approve S 2308-11A as read?
I make a motion to approve the ordinance as read.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, so we'll vote. Mr. Riddick?
Aye.
Mr. Daughtry?
Aye.
Mr. Thompson?
Aye.
Ms. Spooner?
Aye.
And Andrews, aye. Passes 5-0.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The next item on the agenda is the zoning change for said Murray Capital Investments. This is Z 23-04. I'll read it by title. This is an ordinance of Bradford County, Florida, amending the official zoning atlas of the Bradford County Land Development Regulations as amended, relating to the rezoning of 10 or more contiguous acres of land pursuant to an application Z 23-04 by the property owners of said acreage, providing for changing the zoning district from agricultural to Ag 2 to commercial intensive CI of certain lands within the unincorporated area of Bradford County, Florida, providing severability, repealing all ordinances of conflict, and providing for an effective date. Again, I need to ask for public comments, a motion, and a vote.
Okay, any public comments on Z 2304 as read? Okay, hearing none. Do I have a motion to approve Z 2304 as read?
Madam Chair, offer motion to approve,
Okay,
Z 23-04 is
Second.
read.
I'll second.
any discussion? All right, then we'll vote. Mr. Riddick?
Aye.
Mr. Daughtry?
Aye.
Mr. Thompson?
Aye.
Ms. Spooner?
Aye.
And Andrews, aye. Passes 5-0.
Again, thank you, Madam Chairman. The next item on the agenda, this is Z 23-05. Again, just to, for the board's memory, we passed the land use change a month and a half or so ago. They just waited to make sure the land use change passed, so now we're going to change the zoning of this particular piece of property. And this is Z 2305, and I'll read it by title. This is an ordinance of Bradford County, Florida, amending the official zoning atlas of the Bradford County Land Development Regulations as amended, relating to the rezoning of less than 10 contiguous acres of land pursuant to an application Z 23-05 by the property owners of said acreage, providing for changing the zoning district from residential single-family 1, RSF-1, to commercial intensive, CI, of certain lands within the unincorporated area of Bradford County, Florida, providing severability, repealing all orders of conflict, and providing for an effective date. And again, we'd like to ask for public comments. I need a motion and a vote, please.
Okay. Any public comments on Z 2305? Okay, hearing none. Do I have a motion to approve Z 2305 as read?
I'll make a motion to approve Z 2305 as read.
Second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, so we'll vote. Mr. Riddick?
Aye.
Mr. Daughtry?
Aye.
Mr. Thompson?
Aye.
Ms. Spooner?
Aye.
And Andrews, aye. Passes 5-0.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. That's all I have. Thank you, Board.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, next we have the clerk's report.
I just want to say this. I've been through, this is my 15th audit at Bradford County. And this is the first time that we've ever gotten a clean audit all the way through. And even the constitutionals, I mean, it's really amazing. And I used to always hear them say, you've got to put something bad in there. But I'm glad with the way our audit was done this year finally and not had tiny things that had nothing to do with how our audit actually went. But Dana received praise from the auditors. And we've given her praise as well for the great job she did getting everything together and keeping everything straight. There's a lot that goes into it, even purchasing procedures that we have to send stuff back and, you know, say this needs to be redone and stuff. And you get nailed really hard on a lot of that stuff. But
Yeah.
the finance department saved us a lot of heartache this year.
Madam Chairman, if I may, I'd also like to recognize Dana and all the hard work that she did preparing this. We aggravated her to death, and she did an outstanding job, and the county manager's office is very appreciative of the work she did, and Rachel too.
Well, since y'all were calling her, I'm glad I didn't aggravate her. No, I did call, and every time I did, she had the answers for me. But this is a huge shock for everybody, for each one of you, all the constitutional, the different departments. So thank you all for working together and working very hard, because this was a very good audit, and very proud of how it came out.
I'd like to also want to have all five of yours ear for a minute. I've seen too many of these stories about these private roads come up here in front of us over the last 3 years. And I don't know if it's legal or possible. I've spoken with two, I believe, Chris and Kenny, Commissioner Thompson and Doherty. I would like to look into the legality of whether we could require real estate or closing agents to put a disclaimer in there that there is no ingress or egress to this property that is maintained by the county, the state, the city, the government, and so forth. Because I feel a lot of these people, they really, if they'd had a chance to realize what they were getting into, they wouldn't have.
Right, you're exactly.
And I've had this on my mind for months, but I don't know if it's possible we can float it with Rich, I guess, to find out the legality of it. But I'd really hope we could pursue that.
Well, and y'all know how I feel. I rode her road today, and you know I drive an Expedition, and at one point, my bumper hit the ground. That's how deep the hole was. And it starts at the beginning, and it goes all the way through. There sits a young lady right there, same scenario. And I know we don't have the money, and I know, but if we're humans, we have a heart. And that breaks my heart when I know that they're doing all they can do. And these people can't afford to pave their road. If they could, they would. But I couldn't afford to pave my road. And so I'm hoping, and I do actually have one lady that's trying to find something because she told me she thought it was a public safety issue. And if you think about it, I've had Ben take fire trucks down roads and to see if he can make it down there. And he probably could make it down her road, but I'm gonna tell you, you'd be concerned about your engine if you did. It's bad. And we've got them. And it's not that they're asking for them to be paved. They're asking for dirt to be filled, to fill in the holes. So,
The problem with that lies in that we're responsible for that road once we dump one piece of dirt on it, one load of lime rock or anything, unless it's under emergency declaration during a hurricane
right.
or something of that sort.
Well, and I found a document, but even in that document, in emergency, you gotta bring it before the board. And when a road washes out, if you wait to bring it before the board, I mean, it could be quite a while, so. But we're definitely looking into it. So,
Madam Chair, if I may, and I know this is gonna sound insensitive, but again, just like what the clerk's saying, I have a 263-foot driveway that's a private driveway. And, again, it's something that I have to maintain. And it is unfortunate, and I have brought it up to the Small County Coalition about maybe some type of legislation, because it doesn't just happen here, it happens everywhere. And every time, property gets shown and it's dry season and, people don't see an issue, but then once it happens, the first place they come is to the board. And again, like I said, it's very unfortunate, and we have a lot of it in our county, and so do other counties, but I know that the board's policy has always been not to maintain private roads and private driveways, so that puts us back, right to where we were before. And of course, in a state of emergency, we are able to do and help, and I know that Mr. Dodds has done a really good job at providing that service wherever he can and when he can, but again, it is unfortunate.
okay. All right, so we'll move on. Approval of the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve it?
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Okay. Second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, so we'll vote. Mr. Reddick?
Aye.
Mr. Daughtry?
Aye.
Mr. Thompson?
Aye.
Ms. Spooner?
Aye.
And Andrews, aye. Passes 5-0. All right, website design quotes. You have those?
They're in the package, right? Yes, ma'am. You all have the quotes in your packets. We just need to have discussion regarding the selection of one of the three quotes.
Okay. I don't have that up. All right, does everybody have that?
Give me a second, please.
360. That was the low quote.
The middle one is.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So if you notice the Catalyst quote, Catalyst is the vendor that we have now.
And then the next one is Mr. Thornton. And-
Muni Creative was the presentation that you saw a couple of meetings ago.
And the last one is,
It's Civic Plus. They're part of Muni Code, which does our ordinances. And, of course, you can see the price there.
okay. All right, so I guess we need a motion on who we'd like to go with. As we discussed before, I'm not pleased with what we have now. I don't think any of us are. We had some discussion. I don't think that we have to take the lowest bid. I think that we can look at all of them and what they brought to the table and make the best best selection. So if we have a motion for one,
Yes, Madam Chair, I'll offer the motion based on our discussion that we had at the last meeting with the sheriff's office and also with the clerk's office and just, providing some continuity. I would make a motion that we move forward with Muni Creative, Inc. and Mr. Thornton's company.
all right, do we have a second?
Second that motion.
Okay. Do we have any discussion? All right, so we'll vote. Mr. Riddick?
Aye.
Mr. Daughtry?
Aye.
Mr. Thompson?
Aye.
Ms. Spooner?
Aye.
And Andrews, aye. Passes 5-0. All right. Year 5 LOA MCO.
Yes, Madam Chairman, there's been a change in the particulars surrounding this item, so Chief Carter is going to come up and explain it to you.
Okay.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Board. Always a
Good evening.
privilege to speak before you.
Can I ask something?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell us first what it stands for?
Absolutely. It's in my notes here because I wasn't sure initially either. So
Okay.
I had a great discussion actually with a consulting group who handles this whole program for the state of Florida. They partner with the Florida Fire Chiefs Association, and so just to give you a little bit of background, PEMT is the program that this MCO program is under. So it's a program within a program. The PEMT is the Public Emergency Medical Transportation Program. It provides $35 million to public entities for the provision of emergency transportation services to Medicaid fee-for-service beneficiaries. Long dictionary definition there for you. The MCO is Managed Care Organization, and that's the portion of this program that we're going to focus on. It's relatively new for EMS. Hospitals have been doing this for a very long time. But MCO collections for the EMS is, again, a relatively new thing. As a matter of fact, we're going into year 5 of this program. What this program does is it takes into account the state's FMAP, or Federal Medical Assistance percentages, and the amount of MCO transports that we have, and that determines our total funding allotment. So what this boils down to basically is sometime between now and December of 2023, we're going to be receiving approximately $480,000 in federal funding from MCO payments. This is completely unanticipated revenue, and it's our total allotment for year 4 of the program. As I mentioned, we're going into year 5 right now. So this is from year 4. This is last year's portion of the MCO program. And we did not participate last year in what's called the IGT, or Intergovernmental Transfer. And I don't know if y'all know in this business there are a lot of acronyms. So I apologize for all those, but I'll try and explain all of them best I can. So what that means again is sometime between now and December, we're gonna get $480,000 for our MCO, transports. For every department that does not participate in the intergovernmental transfer amount, the total allotment for every other agency throughout the state of Florida decreases. The letter of agreement, which is what we're discussing tonight, is basically our commitment to pay the intergovernmental transfer for year 5 of this program, which will be due around August or September of 2024. The year 5 IGT amount, or intergovernmental transfer amount, is $300,763.93. That is the absolute maximum amount that we will be responsible for. This number may decrease proportionally with our total allotment if all agencies do not participate in the IGT portion of the program. So if other agencies don't participate in that IGT, the total allotment for the whole state goes down, which will bring our number down as well. But it's going to bring our total allotment, but it's also going to bring, again, our IGT portion of that down. So, and I'll wrap all this up into a nice little bundle here for you in just a second. Again, each agency that does not participate decreases funding for the entire state. We were one of 7 agencies out of 94 agencies across the state who did not participate in the IGT portion of year 4 of the program. So we were one of 7, and they send that list out to all. They send the whole list of everyone, what their funding rate was and who all participated and not. So it's very glaringly obvious what departments don't participate in that program. Our estimated total allotment for year 5, which is the year we're going into, will be paid to the county around October or December 2024, anytime between October and December 24. Again, this year, that number is approximately $480,000. Next year, our number for the total allotment is approximately $715,000. So as you can see, it increases significantly. So basically what I'm asking you for this year is that we're receiving approximately $480,000. We didn't buy into this program. We didn't participate in the IGT, so we haven't paid any money into this program. So we're getting $480,000 free and clear. My suggestion would be that we take that money, we put that into a separate account. And I've discussed this with Ms. LaFollette and Ms. Roden as well a little bit, and County Manager. Ms. LaFollette and I talked this afternoon regarding the changes that I discovered after speaking with the consulting group. My suggestion would be, again, we take this $480,000 that we receive, or approximate amount, put that into a separate account, a savings account, if you will, and we use that money to pay the IGT portion for year 5, the $300,000. So again, we're still going to net. This is $480,000 free and clear. We pay the $300,000 IGT, and we're still netting approximately $180,000 off of that. We're basically using their money at that point to buy us into the program. And again, next year, that funding level goes up to $715,000. So pretty significant amount. My suggestion, again, would be put this money, the $480,000, into a separate account, use that to pay the $300,000 worth of IGT, and then any money over that is just like reserves would be brought before the board before spending anything, and use that again as a fund there, as you see fit. So again, my suggestion would be that my ask tonight would be that we approve the letter of agreement, to sign the letter of agreement in the amount of $300,763.93, and then the money the unanticipated revenue that is received from the MCO program goes into a separate account to be used to to be spent on the IGT amount for next year, for year 5, and then any additional would be just like reserves, where it's brought before the board before being spent.
Okay.
Madam Chair, may I ask, Mr. Carter?
Yes, ma'am.
So that, making sure that I understand, so we would have to invest the $300,000 initially for the IGT. But as you indicated, if everyone doesn't participate, that number, that 400 and something could go down.
Yes, ma'am.
So it could potentially be a wash?
No, ma'am. So whatever the number, the net revenue that we're going to gain for next year would go down in proportion with our transfer that we're going to have to pay. So the $300,763.93 and 93 cents is the absolute cap. That's the maximum. We're not going to be paid more than that. We will, probably pay less than that if we don't get 100% participation from all agencies throughout the state. Again, we were one of 7 that kind of drug that number down this past year 4. So obviously, full participation is great. It's heavily pushed by the Florida Fire Chiefs Association and the state. But as far as, we're not going to lose money on this deal, essentially.
Okay.
Okay.
We're using their money to pay that IGT, and I think that's the main point, is we're not having to dip it. And that was the main change from what I learned with talking with our consulting group, was I thought we had already received that $480,000, and we have not. So we're receiving that between now and December, and then, again, we can bank that and use that money. And again, that's free and clear money because we didn't pay the IGT portion this past year, so we got that money for free.
Okay, one question, where does this money come from? Will it come from from the general fund, or?
Well, and that's what I'm saying. If we get the $480,000 payment, and then we create a separate account for that, we can create a separate GL, and we store that in a GL by itself, and then we don't touch that money unless
So we don't have to pay it right away?
No, ma'am. That'll be due in September, sometime between August and September.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
That was the significant change that we just learned about
Correct.
today. Prior to today, we thought we were gonna have to pay now.
Okay.
upfront.
And we thought we'd have to pull from reserves in order to pay that, but we won't have to touch reserves. This all comes from their money,
House money,
house money.
house money.
I was gonna use Vegas as a, example, but I'm sure that'd go over.
I got you. I'm tracking.
All right. So do you have a motion to enter into intergovernmental transfer and of the amount of $300,763.93, I guess, and form a special account for the $414,659.32 that will be coming to us
I
to
would-
be used?
I would ask just not to set an amount on that because that will fluctuate. So
Okay,
I
okay.
would say that the IGT would need the set amount of $300,763.93 as a maximum.
Okay,
The revenue that we're gonna receive, we just don't know what that total amount's gonna be.
okay.
Madam Chair, I think the motion would be sufficient to say, approve entering into the agreement, with the IGT,
Okay,
and let that be it.
all right. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we move into the agreement with the intergovernmental transfer.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? All right, so we'll vote. Mr. Riddick?
Aye.
Mr. Daughtry?
Aye.
Mr. Thompson?
Aye.
Ms. Spooner?
Aye.
And Andrews? Aye. Passes 5-0.
Thank you very much. I also do want to recognize, we've got our fire marshal with us this evening, Chris Cooksey. Got a very, very good compliment on him the other day, and so we had a customer call in and say that he had gone above and beyond, and just wanted to express our sincerest appreciation for his hard work. But he does a lot of good work behind the scenes, and you guys don't see him often, so I just want to thank him. And as always, Chief Rogers is my right hand. He does a great job, so thank y'all.
Thank you.
All right. Just don't leave Mr. Townsend out.
All right, Bradford County City of Stark Joint Dedication State.
Yes,
Road
ma'am,
230.
Madam Chair, so this is Bradford County and the City of Stark joint dedication of State Road 230 as the Dr. Peter J. Giannis Memorial Highway. And if it pleases the Chair, I would like to ask Commissioner Doherty to read the resolution.
Okay,
Okay. A joint resolution of the Board of County Commissioners of Bradford County, Florida, and the City Commission of the City of Stark, Florida, acknowledging and honoring the life and accomplishments of Dr. Peter John Giannis, M.D., and declaring the honorary designation of a portion of State Road 230 in Bradford County, Florida, and the City of Stark, Florida, as the Dr. Peter J. Giannis Memorial Highway.
okay. All right, do I have a motion to approve this dedication?
I'll make a motion to approve the dedication.
I'll
Right.
second.
Okay, any discussion?
Yeah, and I think you may have researched it, but I thought we had approved this last year. Did we,
We did.
We did?
Okay, that's what I thought.
We did, and I apologize, because
I remember.
there was a lot of stuff was going on then, and obviously we have a lot of new faces here, and but anyway, we did, and we were waiting for some additional approvals, but at this time we will present that the previous resolution.
Yeah.
Right.
After it was approved in
Yeah.
February of '22,
Yeah.
there was still more administrative work that needed to be done that never got done.
Right. Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
so, yeah,
So.
we're gonna move forward.
And anyway, I'll just a shout out to Clay County too, because yeah, I've been working with their county, and when the county engineer asked if they could use our resolution, I said, well, I don't think we have one.
Yeah,
So
okay.
that was just a moment. Let's just say that it was a moment. So nonetheless, we're moving forward. I did go to the city commission meeting on what night was that, Sheriff? Monday night? Tuesday night? Tuesday, again, forgive me. But, and just told them what our intent was. And so, you know, we wanted to work with the city on this, and it be a joint effort, because he meant so much to, you know, our county, the city, and so many people in the county and the city, and also to a lot of counties around us. To mention a few: Clay, Levy, Alachua, Gilchrist, Union, that's right, Union. And but anyway, so we'll move forward with that previous resolution, and then in the meantime, the city will vote on this joint resolution at their next meeting. And once they do, right now the intent is to have the sign in the right-of-way, just off the sidewalk right by the hospital where he worked. So can't think of anywhere more appropriate. If you're coming from Clay County, if you'll get on the State Road 230, you will see the sign that Clay County's already put up. And our intent is to put the sign would be very similar to theirs in color, and the only difference would be it'll have the Bradford County logo and the City of Stark logo on there. So anyway, thank you all for your support.
Okay, so we'll vote again on it. Mr. Riddick?
Aye.
Mr. Daughtry?
Aye.
Mr. Thompson?
Aye.
Ms. Spooner?
Aye.
And Andrews, aye. So it passes 5-0. All right, and approval to the list of surplus property for sale on government deals.
Yes, Madam Chair, actually, there's two items that we need to discuss and make a motion and vote on. As you can see in your packets, we got the appraisals back for both the Pizza Hut and the old welding shop in Brooker. The first authorization, or the first thing we need to do is set a reserve. If we put it on Gov Deals, we have to list a reserve amount that you have to meet before we can award. So staff's recommendation is to go ahead and set the reserve at the appraised value.
Okay,
If you want, you can discuss it, and if you see value in setting it lower than the reserve, or lower than the appraisal, then we can do that as well. Strictly up to you guys.
all right.
Madam Chair, yeah, the appraised value at $200,000. I know that Pizza Hut's been there for a long time, and it doesn't look like a whole lot right now, but you know, it is on 301. It is, you know, 301 frontage property. It's commercial property, and I personally think even if someone was to level it and do something else there, I believe that property is worth more than $200,000 being on the, you know, right there. Certainly, I think I might have mentioned to the chief, I said it'd be great to have a Firehouse Subs there, you know, something like that. And I'm sure that it would do well. But nonetheless, I think we should reconsider the $200,000 and maybe come up with a number that we can all agree on. Not that we're real estate appraisers, but I think that if we decided that incrementally, you know, if we jumped up, I don't know, maybe another 50,000 and set the reserve at 250.
Okay.
Again, I you know, I hesitate to say that again because I'm not an appraiser. I'm just looking at the value of the property being on 301.
Any other
And that,
discussion?
I wouldn't want to assess it, to give it for less than it's been appraised at either.
No. But would you, what about 250?
I'm okay with that, but, when you look at the appraised value, at least that.
Mr. Thompson?
Same here,
Mr. Riddick?
Yes, I would say at least the 250 for sure.
Okay.
We can get a whole loaf of bread, get a whole loaf.
And not to, again, you know, in any way, I would say argue, but certainly Mr. Hardenbrook's been doing this for a long time, and but you know, again, I just think that again, I mean, I can't say enough about it. I just, like I said, it's on the waterfront. It's on the road frontage, and I just think the value is more than the 200,000.
All right.
So yes, I would make a motion that we set the reserve at 250.
And yes, the amount, the motion should be for the amount and also to list it on GovDeals for sale or for auction.
Okay.
All right, and let's don't go to it.
Okay.
Okay.
So my motion would be to set the reserve at 250 and list it on GovDeals.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? All right, so we'll vote. Mr. Riddick?
Aye.
Mr. Daughtry?
Aye.
Mr. Thompson?
Aye.
Ms. Spooner?
Aye.
And Andrews, aye, so it passes 5-0.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The second item is the former welding shop in Brooker. You can see what the appraised value is there as well, and we'll need to do the same thing and set a reserve.
Okay. All right, do I have a motion on that?
I'll make a motion that we keep the reserve at the amount that was presented.
And
81,000.
That's 80,
Is it 81?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
And-
correct.
and-
Yeah. Yeah, 81,000.
And list on
And list.
GovDeals.
And listed on, yes, and listed on GovDeals.
All right, do I have a second?
second.
All right. Any further discussion?
Madam Chair, if I may, and I should have said this earlier, you know, it's nice that we'll be able to, you know, if we do sell these properties, then we're getting them back on the tax rolls. So,
Mhm.
you know, the benefit of having future tax revenue is beneficial.
All right. No further discussion, we'll vote. Mr. Riddick?
Aye.
Mr. Daughtry?
Aye.
Mr. Thompson?
Aye.
Ms. Spooner?
Aye.
Andrews, aye, so it passes 5-0.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir. All right. Did you have anything else, clerk your board? Anything else? Okay. Sheriff? Okay. And county manager?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first item is consideration of approval for the county manager to engage Bryant Miller Olive Law Firm for professional services related to development of a fire assessment program and updating existing impact fees.
Okay. Do I have a motion that we approve that?
Madam Chair, if I may, Mr. Cornegay, so the fire assessment and the impact fees, that's the same law firm, right?
Yes, sir.
Bryant
They
Olive.
would do both.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I know it says that there, I just wanted to confirm, but anyway, my thing with the impact fees, again, is going back to, and I know this would be a consultant, but, you know, that's really the only way to go, because this board cannot determine how impact fees will be collected or how they'll be used. I mean, well, we do have a say on how they'll be used. I mean, we could dedicate them all to public safety. We could dedicate them to public safety and roads. We could dedicate them to public safety, roads, and schools, and wherever the impact is. But, you know, yeah, so if it's the same firm and that's what we're looking at, then I would make a motion that we approve for the county manager to engage Bryant Miller Olive in the professional services related to development of fire assessment program and updating existing impact fees.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion?
I'll just make one comment. I know we need to get some revenue in for the county. I'll just be honest with you, it's very disappointing that we could not get the franchise fee in place. That would have been a whole lot fairer way of bringing in revenue for the county and taxing the people, because once again, once we pass this fire assessment, you know who's gonna pay for it. It's
Oh,
the
yeah.
people that pay all the other taxes, and I just feel like, I still feel like the franchise fee is the best way to go, but it doesn't look like we can do it, so, this is the choice we have to go down, and the people with a lot of property and valuable property, I believe they'll be calling Clay Electric and saying, you should have gone with the franchise fee, because it'd have been fair and spread out among a lot more people than what this is fixing to be. But again, like I said, I agree, we've got to do something, for the fire and rescue, so, and then the impact fee, I definitely agree with, I've been wanting that for quite a while. So I just want to make that comment.
Well, and like you said, it's unfortunate because we really tried very hard to find the easiest way. And we thought the franchise fee was, but unfortunately, they said that the people that they polled said no, and that they couldn't do it, so we're not left with many options, so like I said, it's unfortunate. Ms. Spooner, did you have something?
Yes, Madam Chair, just to ask Mr. Cornegay, I know that with this company, they will be updating the previous study that was done and bringing it up to the present date. And I know part of that is doing an analysis on the cost for property taxes and taking all of that into consideration. And at the fee in which they're looking at for the cost of the study, is that the lowest that we can negotiate?
Actually, you're in a unique position right now where, having worked with this firm and they have a consultant that performs the methodology, and not just do they perform the methodology, but they're willing to defend it in court should anybody actually sue the county over how the assessment is determined. But when I said you're in a unique position, it's because instead of having to pay a law firm and the consultant two separate times, one for the fire assessment and one for the impact fee, they actually spoke among themselves and with our county manager, and they bundled them together, so you're essentially paying a discounted rate to do both at the same time.
Okay, thank you.
So my answer is yes, ma'am. I think we've done a good job of negotiating probably the best deal we could possibly get.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, if I can say also, I've been on the board for 6.5 years, and periodically we have things come up, like, roof repairs, HVAC repairs, pavement repairs, things like that. Let's just use this courthouse for an example, and we take care of those things as they come along. But, so in our house, let's call it the board, there's things that haven't been moved forward or taken care of in so long, and now that price is hefty. It's hefty on just the citizens, but, at the same time, it's something that if you look across the state and where these fees and assessments are levied, they're not in the same position that we're in. They're not at the 10 mills, and they have the additional revenue sources to be able to take care of the things that, hopefully, and I understand, people are, it might be, whether it's a fixed income or paycheck to paycheck or whatever you want to call it, and that makes it very difficult. But at the same time, if we don't do the things that we need to do now, we're going to continue to be that county, and we'll continue to be the county next to another county that is in a similar situation. And we don't, if we want to become this haven for for folks like that, then eventually it's gonna cost us even more to take care of everybody else. So I hope that made sense, but, you know, at the same time, I think that we're again in a position to where, you know, the can's been kicked for way too long, and it's been years and years and years. And even the franchise fee, I still can't understand why the franchise fee was pulled off when it was already in effect, you know? So now that's another uphill battle, trying to have that conversation, so. But I agree with Commissioner Riddick and what he said, in that, you know, by them not being agreeable to that, then you're basically just saying, okay, then we're just gonna have a portion of people pay for this instead of sharing that cost.
That wouldn't have been right, absolutely. Wouldn't have been right.
Well, and as we get things where they need to be, I think that the goal of all of ours is to see that property tax brought back down. And, so, but with that, we'll take it to a vote. Mr. Riddick?
Aye.
Mr. Daughtry?
Aye.
Mr. Thompson?
Aye.
Ms. Spooner?
Aye.
And Andrews, aye. Passes 5-0.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The next item is approval of agreement between Bradford County and the North Central Florida Regional Planning Council for local government comprehensive planning services.
Okay, all right. And this is just where the group is coming, or has established again, and we're just refunding their money. Okay, so do I have a motion that we,
No,
I-
no, that,
oh, I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, the decision would be, do you want to enter into this agreement again with them, or would you like to
I see.
discuss other options?
Okay.
Madam Chair, if I may, I'd like to discuss other options. I still don't think we're getting our bang for our buck there. And, you know, it's, they're delayed in their responses, and, you know, I think that, you know, we could look at other options and figure out, you know, how we're gonna get more response and, be able to, you know, get the information, you know, that Mr. Andrews needs in a timely manner to be able to present stuff to us, so that when folks are waiting on an approval, they're not waiting on Mr. Andrews, they're waiting on the planning council. And so, I know we've had this discussion before, but, as we continue to move forward with them, it just seems like the service drops off until we have a discussion about it.
Yeah.
And then we have a discussion, they come running, and they're here, and then it starts to drop back off again. So, that is, I'm one person, but that's been my opinion and
and I got,
just
agree
overview.
with Commissioner Daughtry 100%, because, you know, we ain't getting a bang for our buck, you know. I mean, that's just, I'm like him, I'm one more commissioner, but I believe we can look at it, so.
Madam Chair, the board has engaged with this organization for years, and it has with the city. And there are about, I know at least 13 counties and probably 33 cities that are engaged with it. In the past, they have delivered on their obligation, but I think any agency that is not performing at the level in which we expect, we ought to give that person or the agency a chance to make amends for whatever we say that they're not doing. In the case with the North Central Florida Regional Planning Council, when he's been brought here and asked questions, those have been answered. So before you cut it out, I think we should give a chance to correct, if there is any correction, because when he's here, I know that Mr. Doherty has expressed his concern, but Mr. Andrews has not, or some of the others. But they've been doing this for a number of years. He's surrounded by some of the best professional planners in this side of the state. And it's an agency and a work that we need for our county. So I would be concerned. And the amount of the fee, the $23,500, is a reasonable amount. I know that a few weeks ago, we renewed a contract with a person to do a work when we knew that there was questions about the workmanship. Not only did we give that person another chance, but we increased the amount of dollars to him by $40,000. So I'm just saying, before we dismiss this, give him a chance. If there's something specific that is not getting done, allow that opportunity. That's the fair thing to do to me.
Madam Chair, if I may, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Spooner, but I think we had this discussion the last time we brought this up about giving them another chance. And, you know, like currently, right now, their office is not even staffed. And I know that because it's right next to my office. So without them being staffed, and they also have, I think one of their main folks that they have working for them, she's in Nevada. So we're not even getting the attention and the close, you know, need that we have when we have that need. So I think Mr. Coons is probably working as hard as he can. I just don't think he has the staff. And like you said, with all these other municipalities and counties, I think you could probably find out that some of them are dropping off too because of the lack of service.
Mr. Rudy, do you have anything?
Let's check into and see what it would cost us, and bring that. What would it cost us if we did go a different
You mean
direction?
for an alternate?
Yes.
So you would take no action on item B and give staff direction to reach out to other vendors?
I think so.
Is
I
that,
think that would be.
is that the consensus?
That would be fine.
Commissioner Thompson said that would be fine.
That's it.
We-
Okay.
Do we need a vote on that?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
All right, very good. We'll get to work on that. Item C is a solid waste window decal. The, when we increased the assessment, I know many of you got concerns from various residents about people who were not Bradford County residents using the collection site. So after talking with the Public Works Director and the Solid Waste Director, we decided that probably an effective way to move forward would be to create a decal and issue those decals to the residents. And the way that process would happen is, if you come to the tax collector's office and you have your, get your tax assessment and have the tax collector's office take a look at your taxes, and then they would issue you a decal if you were eligible. We would also have them at the collection sites, where a resident could present, once again, his tax assessment, and a decal be issued there. The way we would address people who live in apartments and renters, they would have to come to the tax collector's office, because it wouldn't be fair to our site attendants to ask them to know where every street address is in Bradford County. So that would be the restriction in that process. And then, of course, you see the numbers for the amounts and or the numbers of stickers and the dollar amount.
Madam Chair, and Mr. Cornegay, I think that's a good idea. And one of the questions that I had, if you were a person with multiple properties, if you take your refuse or whatever to the dump, you can only take one load a day. But if you got 5 pieces of property, you should, in my opinion, be able to take 5 loads if you need to. So if there's any way, and I don't know if Mr. Dodd can speak to that, but that's one of the things I'd like to see changed. But you can show proof, here is my other property, but.
Yes, ma'am.
Was the suggestion, was it made from someone, from one of the citizens, or did you guys come up with it?
There was a.
So there was, actually, this process was in place years ago, because,
Oh, okay.
and then it got discontinued for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
I
yes.
think it's a good idea.
But there was a citizen who did send a letter asking if we could do that, Mr. Wise.
Yes, and I'll take, because I was one of the ones too that was really asking Mr. Cornegay to look into it, and Benny, because yes, I've been getting hit hard, especially the landfill on, right across 21B and 100, the rest area. Yes, I get a lot of calls on that, people complaining, that they go in there and
yeah.
they see people from, Clay County or
County.
wherever dumping in there, so I do get a lot of calls on that.
Okay.
So it would, yes, it would definitely be good if we could put that in place.
Okay. All right. You don't need a vote on that, right?
You do, yes, ma'am.
Uh,
You'll need a motion and a second and a
Okay.
vote.
So do I have a motion to go with the decals?
Madam Chair, I offer motion to go with the decal
Okay.
as indicated.
Do I have a
Second.
All right. Any other discussion? All right, so we'll vote. Mr. Riddick?
Aye.
Mr. Daughtry?
Aye.
Mr. Thompson?
Aye.
Ms. Spooner?
Aye.
And Andrews, aye. Passes 5-0.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And now we'll address the two walk-on items. Item D is rescheduling the November 16th board meeting. That is the week of the Florida Association of Counties Annual Conference. And I think most of us will be there for that. Your two options are rescheduling. You could reschedule the week before, for the week before, but if you do that, there's only gonna be 9 days passed since the previous meeting. You could reschedule the week after, but that's Thanksgiving week. So you can reschedule to either one of those days, or we could cancel.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
I'm sorry, can I just make a comment? I'm talking with our finance director, Ms. LaFollette, and we do try at the end of November to bring back to the board resolutions with respect to the budget. And so if you cancel your meeting altogether, that could cause a little bit of an issue for our office in trying to reconcile your books. So if it was possible to reschedule later in the month, that would be advisable.
Okay, so the week after?
Yes. Well,
Week
Mr.
after is Thanksgiving?
Yes, ma'am, that's the only rub there. That wouldn't bother me.
Yeah,
The
if we,
30th, the last week, or, we've got that next week after.
Sure, there's Thursday, the 30th.
The 30th?
Mhm.
Is that what you're
Okay,
saying?
that'll work. Will that work for you?
wait.
What about the Tuesday of the week of Thanksgiving?
Yeah,
Do you
the
think
20
people would already be leaving, or could we?
Yeah.
The 21st, I think that's far enough out and far enough away from it.
That would be better for me too.
Can you have it done by the 21st?
Yeah, you're gonna have a meeting
Next meeting is
5
like
days
5
after.
days later.
21st is fine, 28th would be better, but the 21st is fine too.
The 28th, the 28th,
What is that, would that be on
On a Tuesday? Usually a Tuesday.
Madam Chair, I want to ask the deputy clerk, would it be possible to do those true-ups of the first meeting in December, or is that too late? So that's beyond 60 days?
So,
that's
21st,
28th.
28th? 28th, is that good?
I mean, that's gonna put us right on top of the December 5th meeting, right?
Yeah, it looks like we're going to have that sort of problem any way we go, so.
Yeah.
So what's gonna work best then, the 21st or the 28th?
The 28th is better for us just because I'll still be getting the revenues in, throughout the end of November. We can make it work.
Okay. All right, so do I have a motion to change the meeting from November the 16th to November the 28th?
I'll make that motion.
All right, have a second?
I'll second.
All right, any discussion? We'll vote. Mr. Riddick?
Aye.
Mr. Daughtry?
Aye.
Mr. Thompson?
Aye.
Ms. Spooner?
Aye.
And Andrews, aye. Passes 5-0.
And Madam Chairman, I'm assuming we'll maintain the 6:30 PM start?
Yes.
That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Okay.
No, you've got the invoice issue.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. We do have an item E. It's an invoice in the amount of
Oh, yeah.
42,000, I don't have the amount in front of me, but it exceeds the my authorization of 25,000, so it's gonna need board approval. But I do have a comment to make. It seems to me that once you guys approve a project, you're also approving the amount of the project. So I'm unclear as to why we need to go back and approve another invoice that has essentially the amount's already been approved.
Did we know the amount at that time?
Jason, do you wanna
Yeah.
weigh in?
Approved it, we did.
I mean, I don't remember.
So essentially, what I do is when I go through the road assessment, I put out what I think it would cost us. And that's basically the numbers that we've been staying within or under with, you know, us doing it in-house. So yes, there is a number. Do I know that that number was presented to you in any other way than a road assessment, what I projected the cost? I'm not sure about that part of it.
Okay, but we're sure that this is the amount? The 42,000?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Just for the asphalt, yeah.
That's
just
just-
the-
Okay, just for the asphalt.
Mr. Corning is asking about projects going forward, how the board wants to see those handled.
As a practical matter, I don't see how we can move forward in this fashion. There's just, we would have to wait to get board approval for specific invoices, and Jason's trying to build a road in the meantime.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, yeah.
Madam Chair, if I can make a comment, and I think, as Mr. Cornegay just mentioned, the project, we approved the project. We also approved the gas tax at one time, and we approved for that gas tax funding to be used for roadway projects. So if we approve that project, and quite honestly, you know, the way that, you know, he's been able to, you know, procure those items, just like the airport project, even though that was funded through DEO, but having him and his staff out there and seeing that project move forward as fast as it did, I don't want to have our gas tax funding held up for something that we approved to have the gas tax funding for projects like this, and then we approve the project, and then we're gonna hold the project up. So that would be my recommendation moving forward. However, I think that, you know, trying to at least put, you know, just a kind of a ballpark, because again, asphalt is like fuel. It's up and down, up and down. But if we were to hire a contractor, I think what's constant with our road department and what they're doing is everything they're doing and the equipment, everything remains the same, but there will be a fluctuation in the product itself. So, you know, again, trying to, you know, figure out what that is, I know is difficult, but again, I'm just saying this to say that if, you know, if we're moving forward with doing these projects, then, you know, I guess we don't want to slow them down.
Right. I agree.
Well-
I think we need to turn him loose and let him get what he needs when he needs it, and then
Right.
go forward. 'Cause
And-
I don't want to tie Jason up.
Well, and I think I've been clear each time we've talked about why we haven't started paving, and that's because of the shortage of aggregate. So I do my due diligence to call and see who has what available, and I've done that since we've got a paver. Just as recently as the two projects we just did, I called 3 or 4 different companies, which gave me a price, but said, we can sell you 100 tons per day or none. And the one particular company said, you've got an account with us, get what you need. And what's the least amount per ton. And that's how I have to price it, is per ton. And that fluctuates from day to day, just like oil and gas, because of the emulsion that goes into the asphalt. And the cost of the aggregate and the shipping. So I just need direction on what to do.
And if I can just make a couple of comments. As don't have a lot of background with this invoice, this is the first time I'm hearing about it as far as being discussed and coming on the agenda. But I will say that I do think that the board's purchasing policy definitely needs to be revised because there are some areas that are unclear, and it's something we've been saying for a while that it needs to be revised, because a lot of times when the clerk's office does receive invoices, we always have to go back and say, but the board's purchasing policy indicates you have to
Right.
follow these steps. I don't know much about the background with this, but I do know, if the board has approved a project, you know, if you say CHW is going to pave, you know, a road, they've given you a proposal. I know CHW would normally send a proposal to you, and typically that proposal then gets put on the agenda for the board to approve, for them
Right.
to say, hey, we're gonna pave this road, it's gonna be $50,000. And then from there, you would get your purchase order, and then as they invoice, you just put the purchase order number on the invoices. So I'm not sure what's happening in this situation, what made this one a little different. I will also say with respect to the gas tax, I know in this budget year, the one that we're working in right now, the commissioners intentionally put what the gas tax would go to as far as individual road projects.
Right,
So that makes sense all day long, right? But
yes, ma'am.
in the budget year that we just built, that was one of our questions. Does the board want to put the gas tax in individual road projects, or is it just going in one lump sum? And they did it as just one lump sum. That was the direction we got. There's a few still? Okay. So if it's the few that's identified, that makes sense. That's what the board approved, right? But if it's in one lump sum and in one GL, and it's different than that, it would help to kind of have some clarification. And that only benefits you. So you're making sure that that gas tax isn't going just to one district. You all have kind of a say in that too.
Okay,
Okay.
good comment, thank you. What if we're talking about revising that policy, if we revise it strictly towards the gas tax and the utilization of the gas tax funds?
Yeah, I think that needs to be revised. There's a lot of other areas as far as state contracts. There's a lot of areas that I think before we had a purchasing policy, we didn't have anything. So it was anything that was $50, you had to get a purchase order for. That was crazy. So we had to go back and revise and create a purchasing policy. And I think that worked, but in doing that, a lot of things were not accounted for because you were creating it at that time, and then things come up and you kind of say, oh, well, we probably need to go back and revise that. We don't really address that. That's a little vague. So there's definitely some areas that need to be addressed, that being one of them. I'm sorry? Yeah.
Okay.
So probably the easiest thing to do, it sounds like you all understand and agree that the project has already been approved, and it's intuitive that this amount should be included in that project approval umbrella. So you can consider that this has already been approved and no action is required, and that's how we're gonna operate moving forward.
It's been last year. Yes, ma'am.
I wish I'd known about it before it came to this.
We,
Well, it was last minute for me as well,
yeah,
but I didn't
we
want to
just
hold up
furnished with
anything
it
else,
right before this meeting,
so.
so.
Okay.
Well,
So-
Madam Chair, if
So
I
we
may,
will-
so Mr. Cornegay, you said moving forward, we'll just continue to approve the projects? Okay.
Yes.
And as the project comes along, and I think that, you know, certainly think that Mr. Dodds has the experience and the qualifications to be able to do a takeoff and be able to determine, you know, what it's gonna cost, you know, for the scope of services that are presented, and at least, you know, try to get, you know, and I know you're dealing with other people and other prices, but,
Yes, sir.
you know, just trying to, you know, kind of get within a frame or a window.
Yes, sir.
So
We
this,
ju-
this wasn't an additional cost. This was just part of what the project was going to cost
Yeah.
That's
that you
correct.
got.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
it's actually a lot less than what the project would have cost with a contractor.
Okay.
We just don't want to get caught in the trap of having to hold Jason up to approve these individual invoices when the amount has already been approved in the, you know,
Oh, I understand.
umbrella.
Done a go deal, so take the
Okay.
reins on it, let it go.
Mayor,
Okay.
quick one. So I, if I'm not mistaken, the next project is 106, so it's already approved, so you should be able to just order whatever you need to finish it. And then I think after that was, what is it, 38th?
Yes, sir.
You know, so we've already approved them, so.
Right.
Jason should be able to just order what he needs and move on.
Yes, sir,
If-
absolutely.
Nothing else, just right.
As long as it stays in that budget, we all know that.
Yes, sir. I mean, I agree. If it's already came before the board and you've approved the proposal from CHW, then I'm not sure why any invoices would need to come to you.
No. I don't
We
think,
approved it, it's a done deal.
unless it goes beyond, of course, then it would be brought to our attention, but
But it's not
if
gonna
it's
do that.
within the scope of the approved amount, I don't think you need to.
Yeah, I have no worries of it growing beyond what the scope of the project was.
So in that case, you won't need to take any formal action. We'll just need consensus that we all agree that this has already been approved, and going forward, we won't have to deal with this again.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Mhm.
Sounds good, thanks.
And that is my last item, Madam Chair.
All right.
I promise.
All right, Mr. Commando?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First thing that I have is a resolution of the Board of County Commissioners of Bradford County, Florida, closing and abandoning a road 30 feet in width, providing direction to the clerk, providing direction to the county manager, and providing for an effective date. And that resolution is contained in your packet.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution as read?
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution as read.
Second?
A second.
All right, any discussion? All right, so we'll vote. Mr. Riddick?
Aye.
Mr. Daughtry?
Aye.
Mr. Thompson?
Aye.
Ms. Spooner?
Aye.
And Andrews, aye. So it passes 5-0.
And the second item is what, Madam Chair, you described as the walk-on. So we have an interesting situation that has come up with the Florida PACE funding. I think most of you all are familiar with Florida PACE funding was a statewide entity that was set up to provide clean energy alternatives to homeowners. The way the legislation was written when they were established, they needed to engage each county through the county commission in an agreement, whether it was an MOU or an interlocal agreement that allowed them to work within each county and to sell the products that they were selling. In November, as part of an effort to raise money, to raise funds through a bond validation lawsuit in Leon County, the PACE organization was able to have a judge that said, you know, you're a statewide entity. You don't have to get those agreements between each county commission. Now, most counties that didn't already have an agreement with the Florida PACE agency disagreed with that ruling, and they disagreed as to whether or not that interpretation applied to them. Where it kind of comes to a head is Florida PACE then went out and was selling to homeowners improvements, whether it be a new roof, it could have been hurricane-rated windows, doors, could have been solar panels, anything like that. And then once the work was completed, they were sending to our tax collector a list of assessments saying, now we expect you to collect, under the uniform method, we expect you to collect those assessments. The tax collectors, as a group, all 67, with their association, consulted legal counsel who agreed with our tax collectors that no, without an agreement, you do not have to collect those assessments. So some of our tax collectors put Florida PACE on notice by sending them a letter, and in turn, Florida PACE has sued them. That has happened here in Bradford County, and as part of that lawsuit, counsel for the tax collectors has asked if the commission would be willing to file a motion to intervene and adopt the position that they are presenting on behalf of the tax collector. Before we take on any type of position like that, the concern I had is there is some financial risk to the county. That you would be paying some of the legal fees, even though fortunately the tax collector attorney says that they will be minimal because essentially they're doing a lot of the drafting and research work up front. The concern I also have is that there could be a liability issue for the county in the, what I pray is an unlikely event that Florida PACE prevails or wins, that they could seek legal fees from us. I don't know that that would ever happen, but given the nature of where we are, I'm looking to you for direction as to whether or not you believe we should intervene in that lawsuit. And just so you know, I believe there's a status hearing tomorrow. A should also add that Hillsborough County was one of the counties that was sued, and we received an order that the court there dismissed the, what's called writ of mandamus, where Florida PACE was trying to get the court to order the tax collector in Hillsborough County to collect those assessments, and it appears that that judge has told them in Hillsborough County that that cannot move forward, I mean, absent an agreement like we described. So at this point, I need some direction from the commission as to whether or not you would like to see us file that motion to intervene, or if you'd like us to stay out of the lawsuit at this point.
Stay out.
Counselor, on the Hillsborough County one, so let me just make sure I'm clear on this. So the state or the judge agreed that PACE would not prevail in this? Is that?
That's my understanding, yes. There's an order, oh, I was just about to pull it up.
Did that county have a motion to intervene there?
You know what, I honestly don't know if Hillsborough did. So just to try to give you a little bit of context, as everything from November 2022 until now, there have been, last count, 5 tax collectors that have been sued. Actually, we were probably 6th. And then there were, separate from the tax collectors that were being sued, there were 4 counties that took an affirmative step and actually went out and sued Florida PACE. So I believe it's Palm Beach County, Pasco Pinellas, St. Lucie, and Alachua were the ones that went after PACE and actually affirmatively sued them. So Alachua already had a lawsuit against Florida PACE, and then Alachua joined in with their tax collector that had also been sued. But I don't have information specifically as to whether or not in the Hillsborough lawsuit, if they had moved to intervene.
I will say this, Commissioner, to be clear on your question about Hillsborough, the judge denied PACE's effort and essentially sided with the tax collector.
So that was over for that county?
Yes. And it doesn't look, and the reason I say it doesn't look like the Hillsborough Commission intervened is because when you read the opening paragraph, it's directed directly towards the respondent, which is the tax collector for that county.
Now, could that same thing happen with Teresa tomorrow?
It depends on the judge. I mean, that's the goal. I mean, the goal is we expect that she'll obtain an order denying that writ as well. I mean, we agree with her position. We agree that
You don't
they
want her to
should
have
be
to
able
do
to
it,
fight.
right?
And there's a lot of layers to this. I mean, there are what I consider to be valid arguments that it's predatory lending. If you ever go to buy a house or a car, you get a truth in lending statement. However, when PACE goes out and sells these improvements to homeowners, they don't provide a truth in lending statement. It's been intimated to a number of government officials that they're not very clear on exactly the fact that this is going on people's tax bills. There are certain people that have paid, for example, $2,000 in ad valorem taxes, and now all of a sudden that's turning into $4,000. It's literally doubling their bill that they have to pay every year. So the nature of how these, hate calling them loans, because to me they're predatory loans, but the way they're kind of sold to people has appeared to be deceptive in some of the circumstances.
Do we know how many we have in the county? 6. Oh, my.
And some, right.
And Madam Chair and Madam Tax Collector, I know you and I had a conversation about this in passing, and certainly not for, what PACE is doing. The reason I asked about Hillsborough County and maybe even some of the other counties, if it's already set some sort of a precedent to where, you know, we can feel comfortable without getting involved, you know, that as they're moving forward, that this whole thing may go away. Oh, I agree. I don't agree with the process at all. I agree with what you're saying. Yeah.
And I imagine that their counsel is gonna argue using that Hillsborough discharge to claim that it's not, there's two types of law, binding authority and persuasive. It's persuasive authority, but honestly, there's nothing else to the contrary right now. So it does improve their position. And this, I mean, the order was entered on the 18th, so it was only 3 days ago.
Now, in the beginning, they were told they had to get permission from the county, correct?
That's correct.
And just one judge told them they didn't, and then they were allowed to go everywhere?
They went gangbusters, yes, ma'am.
But is that correct? It should, I mean,
I don't believe that's correct, no.
okay.
And, I mean, the property appraisers around the state are also involved, in addition to the tax collectors, and, honestly, other than Florida PACE, I don't think any constitutional officer agrees.
So you really, you're, excuse me, Madam Chair, you're presenting it's almost a two-part question. One, you know, do you agree or disagree with what they're doing? And I think we would all say we disagree with that. And then two, do we want to be a part of the litigation, I guess, towards PACE?
That's a good characterization, yes, sir.
And I guess I'm also looking at it like, you know, Hillsborough County is obviously a much larger county than we are, and Alachua County is as well. And do we let them fight this fight, Madam Tax Collector? I mean, I guess that would be, we'll all be in it, but I mean, as far as the county, as far as Bradford County getting involved and. Yeah, sure. Sure. Mhm. So again, I think the two-part question then is one, and what you just said is no, we don't want to go along with that. I think the second part of it is the litigation part of it. Is that something that, and again, the reason I ask that is because if, you know, if there's some bigger guns in this that are fighting it, I mean, in the end, you know, the ultimate result, if they say this whole thing is done and PACE, you're out of here, then, I mean, we're off the hook, right?
Right, so Union County did decide to intervene as well, but Alachua had already sued PACE, so they were kind of already in a fight with them. Correct. I've taken a screenshot probably because I end up talking about this stuff all day. Now in my social media feed, it says a county, or it says like a county funded program. It makes it sound like we're behind it. So there's a lot of layers to this, and candidly, Commissioner Doherty, I think that if we didn't intervene, and I'm not trying to advocate for one position or another, I would expect the legal counsel for the tax collectors will file a motion to dismiss, and I expect that part of that motion to dismiss was that Florida PACE did not join the county as an indispensable party, so there's a chance we may get dragged into it anyway, regardless of your decision.
So Madam Chair, Mr. Commando, so we can take a position that we do not support it, but not to engage in a lawsuit at this time?
That's correct.
Okay. Not until we have to.
And you could do that, yes.
So, Madam Chair, so, Mr. Commando, so then, and I'm just reiterate, what Ms. Spooner's saying. So, again, if we do this as a two-part and say, absolutely, we're not gonna get involved and we're gonna intervene and say, it's not gonna happen here. But then if there is something that, litigation towards Bradford County, then at that point, we can make that decision. I mean, I guess at that point, we won't have a choice, right?
Right.
Yeah, so. Okay. So that might answer the question then. I think right now, we're just gonna say, we're not gonna we're. That's right. Correct. Okay, so, yeah, I'd say that that's our position, or that's my position. I mean, I'm not speaking on the whole board, but,
Mine.
yeah.
Your position is you are against Florida PACE operating within Bradford County, but you don't want to intervene at this time.
Right.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
And that's going off of Madam Tax Collector saying that they have representation through the Tax Collector's Office. Okay. Association, okay.
Right, Ms. Phillips.
And he knows his stuff. I've talked to him. He's very good.
Okay.
Thank you again.
All right. Commissioners' comments? Anybody?
Just a couple of questions, I guess, for Mr. Carnegie and to the board. I know that we have the opioid funding for Bradford County is about $300 and something thousand. So as we're thinking about how we want to utilize those monies, that our board consider looking at it in terms of providing counseling, addiction counseling and prevention and education as a part of a plan for our community, because it's the people who are addicted to the opioids that really need the help. So just to consider that. I know we'll need to do probably a meeting, workshop or whatever, but to be thinking about that. And then, Mr. Carnegie, we have the workshop for next week.
Yes, ma'am. September the 27th at 5:30.
Okay, and what would be the forum? I mean, what?
So I just got an email from Dr. Sanders today. She has a format planned out. I believe the first, that there will be two applicants that will actually present. They've both been asked to present I believe either a 20 or 30-minute presentation. And then, once that's done, you will have the opportunity to ask the applicants questions. And then there'll be a few minutes break, and then the second applicant will go, and then after it's all done, you'll make your decision.
So just the two. The other question I have is, I never knew that the position was advertised, or where it was advertised, or anything. And then the other question would be, when the interviewing process takes place, I know that we were to have 4 applicants.
They only had 2 qualified.
So the two are essentially a short list of.
That's correct,
Okay.
yes. The preliminary screening, they didn't really call it an interview, but the preliminary screening was conducted at UF by their people.
I guess I have a little concern, because as the hiring authority, which is the board, under normal circumstances, you would let the hiring authority know that we're advertising and what venue, where you're advertising and for how long. And then I know in the, with our previous approval of the statutes or resolution that we have, that they were to have a minimum of 4 applicants. But I hear you saying that they only have 2.
Yes, ma'am. 2 qualified. 2 that made it through the screening.
Okay,
I don't know what the total number of applicants was.
okay.
But see, all that's regulated by statute, and that first piece is handled by the University of Florida, not us.
Mhm. Okay. And were the other applicants, the top-ranked applicants from the previous allowed to?
Yes, ma'am.
Apply?
It was an open advertisement. Anyone could have applied.
Okay. Do you know where it was advertised?
No, ma'am, I don't.
Okay. Or when? Did you guys know? How did?
No, and I don't know the process that they
Yeah.
use, I guess. I mean, we could ask them
Yeah.
to find out, but.
It
I-
seems like it was advertised about 3 weeks ago, maybe, 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Yeah. I just want to make sure that, you know, appearances make a difference too. So to make sure that everything was aboard in terms of how it's done. I'm not accusing anybody or anything, but just making sure that it doesn't leave questions as to the process.
Sure. I'll be happy to have a conversation with Dr. Sanders
Okay.
and ask the
Okay.
questions.
I know that having worked in state government, as the university is, the hiring authority is given a heads up about the process. You know, if you're interviewing, you're notified that the interviewing process is the advertising is taking place and where it is. And then when those applicants are screened down, you have a KSA or position description and what is required of the position, and then a set of questions that will be asked of all of the applicants so that everybody is being asked the same thing, and that it's all above board, so that there's no question about the process.
Yeah, I'll be happy to have a conversation with Dr. Sanders.
Thank you.
Do you have anything?
All I want to say, well, I want to say a couple things. Again, Finance Department, thank y'all for, helping. James A. Moore came in late, we know that, and for this to go along as smooth as it did, it says a lot about you guys and gals, excuse me, but everybody and the whole staff. So again, thank you, and constitutional officers and everyone else that was involved. On the Opioid Abatement Council, I was appointed to that, and we're having our first meeting next week on the 27th. So it's a Zoom meeting. So what I'd like to do is get the information from that meeting before we move forward with. I certainly agree with what you're saying as far as programs, because we want to see that money spent properly, and that was part of my appointment with 9 others in the Department of Children and Families, the Attorney General, is to make sure that those funds are spent properly and where they're spent and allocated. So if we could just hold off on that, then I'd be glad to share any information from that. All right, thank you,
And then
that's all.
one last thing, and I'll leave you alone. I know that we're going to have the town hall with Representative Brannon, so to be thinking about the next year of things that we want to ask for.
Yeah, the legislative delegation, yeah.
Yes, we actually firmed up the time earlier today. It'll be November the 1st at 2 p.m.
2 p.m. That's all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Now, that's with, who all will be there?
So the legislative delegation will be Senator Jennifer Bradley
Okay,
and Representative Chuck Brannon. And I'm sure their aides will be here as well.
I hope that we can have some time for us to discuss what we really want to bring forward and work on.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Riddick, anything?
No, I just want to thank y'all, thank Dana and Rachel. Thank you so much for getting that together. And again, I know it was such short notice, but thank you. Thank you. And thank everyone for coming to the meeting tonight. I appreciate everyone that's here and take your time to come to these meetings. Thank you so much.
And I want to thank everyone. Like I said, this was a very team effort, and I think that as we see things progressing in a lot of areas in our community, I think this is an example of things getting better, and so that makes me very, very happy. Another thing I want to say, thank y'all for coming out and being here to support us. And one thing I don't want you to leave this room, Ms. Phillips, without knowing that we want to back you 100%. We want to be there for you and protect you and get this out of the way. So, and with that, thank you again.